This horse, he has done everything right. He's won the 4 races. He's never had to run really, but he's learned from the experience. He's gone 2 turns last time out in the Norfolk, and it was probably his best race. This work is unbelievable. Bob Baffert knows how to win these races, and this is the reason he knows how to win these races, because this horse works superb.
And look at the time, guys. 47-1, absolutely effortlessly there under jockey Joe Steiner. Fantastic work. A double plus.
And of the horses working that distance this morning, that would rank 6th for Looking at Lucky out of 35. Aspire, the next we look at here, Georgina Baxter aboard, going a half-mile this morning at Santa Anita.
Here's the horse. He's got his neck strap on, and you can see the difference here. Not moving quite as fluidly as Looking at Lucky there. Now he jumps into the work. The pace quickens up. But when you compare Looking at Lucky to Aspire, I think Aspire's in trouble if he got the ability to see the work that we just showed prior to this one.
Well, Aspire has that quick action away from the pole and carries the head the way that a sprinter usually does. The thing that I noticed on this work, Frank, and you'll get the last part of it, so tell me if I'm right or wrong, I think Aspire tends to slow down the last portion of the work. The time is very good, but I think it's made up by the beginning of the work, the beginning half of the work, not the last half of the work.
Well, he's a nice horse. There's no doubt. He was 3rd in the Champagne, beaten 2 lengths, 2nd in the Hopeful, beaten 2 lengths, but he looks more like a 1-turn horse to me. He looks more like he's never been around 2 turns. He went a 1-turn mile at Belmont, and he just looks like, well, he does slow down here a little bit, and he looks like maybe that he's had a hard year, and this 2-turn race is going to be a bit much for him.
I think so. 47 flat. You can see this is a prime example, real quick, of not to take too much into times. This horse worked much faster than Looking at Lucky, but who visually was much better?
That's
no
right.
question, Looking at Lucky. Don't pay attention to times. You need to watch the works. That's why you need to watch this show. A couple of horses worked at Belmont Park for trainer Todd Pletcher. Aconite, who's lightly raced, and Escondera, who's coming into the juvenile turf. They worked together on the training track at Belmont, and just finished up nicely here in a minute breezing. I thought visually very impressive down the lane. We don't get to see him much, but I'm very happy as they stroll by the camera there on the training track at Belmont. And then there's Polshan for trainer Patrick Bianco. We've talked about Looking at Lucky, guys, and we've talked about, sometimes we mentioned in the shows about the horses that he has beaten haven't come back to do a whole lot. Now, Polshan finished behind Looking at Lucky last time. He's the horse in front here, which is very different. You don't usually see a decent horse leading the workmate like this. And maybe you can understand why the horses that have finished behind Looking at Lucky, like Polshan, haven't gone on to win, because this work really shows why.
Well, I'm going to repeat again that Polshan is the horse in front, because almost every work that we watch, the worker has a target to run at, and of course we don't see that here. But Polshan is being asked. Look at the hands right there on the rider, being pushed along in this work, and he's going to be pushed along the entire work. To me, this is not the kind of work you want before a big race. I think it's back to the drawing board for Patrick Biancone, and he's going to have to get it right. He's going to have to get it right quick. He's only got a few days.
Frank, when you want the one on the outside?
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, this isn't a particularly impressive work. When you look at this horse, he's got a length and 3/4 to make up on Looking at Lucky, and you see them both out on the track this morning. I don't see this horse making up that length and 3/4, but all the wise guy bettors are betting on this horse.
Not anymore.
No, I know.
Yeah.
Polshan, not a favorable view here from the set going in to the Grey Goose Juvenile. We're going to stay with the Grey Goose Juvenile, but now we're going to take a look at the horses who are coming from overseas into this race, and we're very pleased to have back with us once again Graham Cunningham, our very special Betfair correspondent. He was so good last night that he got a call from Gibraltar, someone who watched the show and said, "Graham, well done," and I'd have to concur.
Thanks, guys. Great to be back. Excitement building bit by bit, and it's great for me in particular to get an idea about these American stars beginning to gear up in their work and go through the notches now.
The Juvenile has been one of those races that it's been tough for Europe to conquer. Let's start with some of the horses that come over this year. Radiohead, could he put him over the top?
I think he has probably as much natural ability of any of the quartet that we're likely to run in the Juvenile. But there is a slight problem with Radiohead. Have a look at this. He's there ringed for you. And how does he win this race? Because he nearly gets knocked into Berkshire High Street. Because look, he gets barged badly, not once, twice, maybe 3 times. And you think he's gone for all money, but he's got heart as well as ability. And he shows acceleration, real acceleration. And he's going away quickly at the line from a pretty good field, significantly. He's the son of Johannesburg, who won this race about 8 or 9 years ago.
2001, yep.
Yeah, the pedigree's there. Is the stamina there? That's the question, because he's looked a sprinter so far. Last time out at Newmarket, a stiff 6, he came home very strongly in the middle park. That's what gives you the encouragement for the longer trip. And I believe his trainer, Brian Meehan, has been pushing very hard for the juvenile as opposed to the juvenile turf.
How difficult is an obstacle, the 2 turns that these horses are facing?
Well, it could be for Radiohead, because he's won once at Bath, a minor race course in the West Country in England, which has a little kink, but he's not been around 1 severe turn, never mind 2. So that's a new experience for him, but I suspect it was a new experience for Johannesburg back in his day. He overcame it. This is a horse with huge, huge ability. The stamina, the last furlong, it could be the chink in his armour.
Aidan O'Brien sends over Alfred Noble.
Yeah, Alfred Nobel is a horse with another quirk. He's got a high head carriage. When we see him in the Phoenix Stakes at the Curragh on very soft ground, there he is ringed, and he comes from what you might call a very unpromising position. This deep ground, deep ground, a very different surface to that which he'll encounter this weekend. But he shows acceleration late on. What about the form, guys? He beats a horse, a stablemate called Air Chief Marshall, who I doubt is even in the top 10 of Ballydoyle juveniles. So the form is not that strong.
He's been winless since this race too.
Exactly. He bombed out in the National Stakes, 6th of 6 behind Beethoven. He was done by a draw bias at Newmarket last time. You have to respect the connections, but I don't think he's in the top 3 Ballydoyle juveniles, and if that's the case, he won't win this.
Godolphin will send out Vale of York, and they went to San Siro last time out.
Yeah, that was him up to Group 1 company, and he ran really well, beaten by an English horse called Hearts of Fire, trained by Pat Edery. The pair came well clear, but again, it's the bottom line. Is he good enough? He couldn't win a Grade 1 in Italy. Logic suggests he's going to find it difficult to win a Grade 1 in America. Likeable, consistent, straightforward Vale of York. Is he good enough? I suspect not.
Back to Aidan O'Brien's yard, Beethoven.
Yeah, Beethoven is an unusual one because he just didn't look a serious horse for a long time. But then Aidan O'Brien's young son Joseph said there's more to come from this horse. He rides him at home. He's only about 16, 17, Joseph, beginning to make a name as a jockey. He said, let's try the visor, which are sort of half-cut blinkers. And they worked a treat when he ran in the Dewhurst. He sprang a 33-1 surprise. This was him in the National Stakes. Look left of picture. That's Alfred Nobel. We've already touched on him. Second from right is Beethoven. He runs a solid race in defeat here. He ran even better to win the Dewhurst. Well, the question is, once again, is he good enough?
Right. I mean, can this race, though? What about time form for this race?
Well, the time forms are Alfred Nobel is a 110 at the moment, Beethoven is a 117, Radiohead is a 115, Vale of York is a 110. If you compare that with the top Americans at the moment, I think that looking at Lucky is 115 with a P, which means he's highly likely capable of much better. And De Funnybone, I think, is a 122, but he's done that on dirt as opposed to synthetic.
And P means improving. They see improvement coming in their next start, perhaps?
Exactly, and I see big improvement in looking at Lucky. Guys, it would be the easiest thing in the world for me to rock up and say that one of the more of the Europeans is a great bet here, but I don't see it. Sometimes every punter, every gambler, every horse player who watches a race sometimes will get a feeling. I watched the Norfolk and I watched looking at Lucky win, and I thought, hello, we've got something here.
What about these numbers?
Could you explain to our viewers what the numbers mean exactly?
Yeah, the numbers mean that an expression in numerical form of a horse's ability that has been shown so far. These are immature athletes, highly likely to progress again, but here we have De Funnybone at the top of the pack, but synthetics, a new question for him. Beethoven 117 based on the Dewhurst run. If the headgear, the visor works again, he's a serious player. But I'm inclined to think of the Euros, Radiohead is potentially a Springer. He's one of the bigger priced horses as well. I know Frank likes Radiohead quite a lot, and we'll probably hear about that in a moment or two.
You went with the wrong Norfolk winner.
Very well said, with looking at Lucky also being a Norfolk winner. Graham, we saw yesterday arriving on the van was Conduit. And I remember back to last year, just what an impression he made on Breeders' Cup Day itself. He just looked like a horse who was going out there to run a big race, and he did. We saw him this morning. Let's take a look at Conduit. How do you think he's arrived and his form coming into this year?
Every single indicator is a positive one at the moment, because Stuart Messenger, who's travelled all four corners of the globe for Sir Michael Stout, he says this horse has taken his journey perfectly, as has the Chinto, as has Spanish Moon. But he stresses the point about the time of year for this horse, that he thrives as the year develops. That was the case last year. He didn't do anything serious, he just cantered out this morning. but he is a formidable middle distance horse. We talked about the pace scenario last night on the Works. The faster they go, the better, the more potent his finish is. He's a killer when he gets to the front, but he's got a stablemate in Spanish Moon who could put it up to him. I like Conduit's chances. The price is tight, however.